In a sleepy Mississippi Delta town, a beloved black nurse named Lenora Green has been working at the same rural clinic for nearly 17 years kind, meticulous and always early for her shifts. But when the clinic is forced to upgrade to a new digital background check system due to a federal health grant, something unexpected triggers. Her fingerprints come back as a match to an unsolved 1997 home invasion that left a local pastor and his wife dead in Biloxi. The records had been sealed, the case forgotten. The face never matched. Until now. Before we expose the secrets buried in this case, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell, because in this world of lies, betrayal, and missing files, one click might be your only way to the truth. Now, let's begin. It was a humid Tuesday morning when the air shifted in the small Mississippi town of Cross Hollow, a place where even whispers didn't travel far, unless they came through the church pews or the barbershop. By 7:01 Lenora Green had already unlocked the front door of the Cross Hollow Community Health Clinic, flicked on the fluorescent lights, and started her coffee like she always did, 2 scoops, no sugar, no cream. Her scrubs were pressed, her badge clipped tight to her breast pocket, and her watch set 5 minutes ahead, as always. Everyone in town knew Nurse Lenora. She'd treated their kids' scrapes, held their grandmama's hands through dialysis, and whispered prayers in patients' ears when hope had gone thin. She was the kind of woman folks didn't just trust, they leaned on her like she was part of the foundation. But by 8:45, Lenora Green was no longer just a nurse. She was a suspect. It started with a new policy. Federal grant, y'all. It's out of our hands, said Dr. Ellis, scratching his balding head as he waved the HR memo. System upgrade includes updated biometric verification for all clinical staff. It's a formality. Ain't nothing to it. No one thought twice about it. Lenora, quiet as always, simply nodded, went into the back office, and pressed her fingers to the scanner. A beep, a blink, a green check mark. She left the room, unaware that across the country, in a cold basement office in Jackson, a flagged hit blinked red on a decades-old federal database. Unsolved case no. 1997431B. Double homicide. Pastor Walter K. Mayfield and Deidre Mayfield. Status: cold CASE no convictions. Match found. Fingerprint ID: Lenora Michelle Green. Match strength: 98.74%. By noon, 2 men in suits were parked across from the clinic. Not FBI, not marshals. Locals wouldn't know them. But Detective Marcellus Ray, recently transferred from Jackson PD, recognized the vehicle before he even saw who stepped out. He'd seen too many of those unmarked black Suburbans growing up. They didn't mean answers. They meant secrets about to burn through the soil. And when he saw where they were headed, straight toward the little Blue Health Clinic on Melrose Road, he narrowed his eyes. What the hell they want with Nurse Green? He muttered. He reached for the Glock he wasn't supposed to keep in the glove box and quietly followed. Inside, Lenora was checking a patient's oxygen levels when the clinic receptionist poked her head through the curtain. Lenora, 2 gentlemen here say they need to speak with you. Urgently. Lenora looked up, expression calm. A pulse oximeter in one hand, clipboard in the other. Tell him I'm with a patient. They said it's official business, the receptionist whispered. And they said federal. Something flickered in Lenora's eyes. Not panic, not surprise. Just the slow, resigned recognition of a clock finally ticking down. She handed off the chart, wiped her hands on her scrubs, and stepped into the hallway where the 2 men, one white, one black, both holding badges but flashing no smiles, waited. Ms. Green, the black agent said, voice steady but unreadable. We'd like to ask you a few questions regarding an open case from 1997 in Biloxi. That name Biloxi hung like a gunshot in the hallway. Behind her, a nurse gasped. Someone dropped a pen. Lenora didn't blink. "I haven't been to Biloxi in over 20 years, she said, voice steady. "That's funny," the agent replied, holding out a printed report, "because your fingerprints say otherwise." Outside, Marcellus Ray stepped from his car and leaned against a utility pole, watching the scene unfold from behind dark aviators. He didn't like how they were crowding her, boxing her in like they already had their story written. He knew the game. He knew the plays. He'd seen good people crushed under the weight of old lies, and he wasn't about to let another one fall without digging up the whole damn graveyard. Lenora didn't flinch as the agents guided her into the back office, the one where the clinic stored extra flu vaccines and half-working laptops. The door closed gently behind them, but the sound felt final, like a lock turning. She sat down in the folding chair, spine straight, hands folded in her lap like she was waiting for a church elder to speak. The black agent, Agent Ramsey, pulled out a tablet. The white one hovered by the door, silent, arms crossed. Ramsey tapped the screen, then turned it to face her. "You see this?" he said. A crime scene photo, dated November 3rd, 1997. The living room of a modest brick home. A broken lamp. Blood on a patterned rug. A Bible open to Psalms. And the still bodies of Walter and Deidre Mayfield slumped over one another on the couch. Lenora looked, didn't flinch, didn't cry, just let out a slow breath through her nose. "Don't know them," she said. Agent Ramsey tapped again. A second image, an old fingerprint scan taken from the inside handle of the Mayfield's back door. "We do," he said. "And we just found that same print in your HR files." Silence. The air was thick, and outside, a car alarm chirped somewhere in the distance, then went quiet again. Agent Ramsey softened his tone. "We're not saying you pulled the trigger, Miss Green. We're not even saying you were an adult then. But your print was there. That means you were there. And this case has sat cold for nearly 3 decades. A lot of people are still looking for peace." Lenora stared at the image again. Not the bodies this time, but the rug. Her eyes narrowed slightly at a torn edge near the coffee table. She swallowed, then said without blinking, "I was 12. At the same moment, Detective Marcellus Ray was parked 3 blocks away, his SUV idling outside Miss Ruth's diner, sipping stale coffee and pulling up old case files on his personal tablet. He had a reason to care. His cousin Tyrone had been locked up at 16 for a robbery in that same Biloxi neighborhood in '97. Claimed he saw something that night. Claimed it wasn't just a robbery. Claimed he saw a girl young, scared, barefoot run from the Mayfield house before the cops even arrived. Nobody believed him. They said he made it up to reduce his sentence. Tyrone died in Parchman Prison 10 years later. The file was closed, but now Marcellus had a name. Lenora Michelle Green. He tapped into the state foster system archives, a trick he wasn't supposed to know, and searched. There it was. Lenora M. Green, D.O.B., October 19, 1985. Ward of the State, Gulfport County. Entered foster system October 1997. No guardian listed. No kin. 2 weeks after the Mayfields were killed. His jaw tightened. She hadn't been a suspect. She'd been a child. And someone had scrubbed her from the record. Back at the clinic, Lenora finally spoke. "I wasn't supposed to be there. My foster brother snuck out with some older boys. Said he knew a house where the pastor kept money in a cigar box under the couch. I followed because I was scared of being left alone in that place." Agent Ramsey lowered the tablet, leaned in slightly. "What place?" Lenora didn't answer right away. Her gaze drifted toward the window. "You ever sleep in a basement with no windows and rats chewing through the insulation?" she asked quietly. "You ever hear the locks click from the outside? The kind that don't open unless somebody wants them to?" Ramsey didn't speak. I followed them that night, through the back fence, through a broken kitchen window. I didn't even go in, just held the screen door open and watched. Then everything went wrong. What did you see? Ramsey pressed. Lenora closed her eyes. I saw my brother panic. He yelled. The pastor stood up. And one of the older boys, he had a gun. That's all I remember. There was yelling, a scream, and 2 shots. She opened her eyes again. And then someone grabbed me by the arm and said, "You never saw nothing. You weren't here." Agent Ramsey exchanged a glance with his partner, who now stepped forward, finally speaking. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" Lenora laughed bitterly. "Tell who? Y'all think people listen to little black girls in group homes? I was lucky. I didn't end up blamed for the whole thing." Ramsey's face shifted sympathy, trying to press through the cracks of protocol. "We need the names," he said gently. "Of who else was there? Especially the one with the gun." Lenora shook her head slowly. "I only knew the one they called Penny," she said. "A boy with a gold tooth and a lazy eye. Always smelled like gasoline. I think he was from Pascagoula." Ramsey jotted it down. "Anything else?" Lenora hesitated, then nodded. "One of 'em had a patch on his jacket," she said. Said 6th Street Saints. Ramsey froze. The 6th Street Saints were a crew that disappeared off the map in the late 90s, suspected of 3 armed robberies and 1 house fire in Gulfport, but no convictions. All sealed or vanished witnesses. Until now. Later that evening, Marcellus Ray sat on the hood of his truck just outside city limits, eyes scanning the glow of the town behind him. He'd printed out the old juvenile record tied to Lenora's name. Redacted, sloppy, and missing entire months. Something was wrong with that file. And if she was telling the truth, if she'd seen what no one else had dared speak aloud, then someone in this town, or maybe in Jackson, had made damn sure her story stayed buried. But now it was rising, and Marcellus intended to dig. Cross Hollow didn't make the news often, unless it was tornado season or somebody's hog got loose at the fairgrounds. But the gossip moved faster than a wildfire once it started. By the next morning, folks were whispering in gas station aisles and behind church fans. Lenora Green, the nurse, involved in a double murder? Most didn't believe it. Some pretended they did. And a few remembered things they hadn't dared speak aloud in 28 years. Detective Marcellus Ray stood in front of an old rusted mailbox on the south side of town, peering up at a sagging shotgun house with ivy strangling its porch beams. The address matched what he'd found on the last living relative tied to the 6th Street. Saints, a man named Mason Penny Carver. Penny wasn't listed in any job database. No taxes filed since 2014, but the name popped up once in a sealed juvenile case file from Biloxi, redacted naturally. Marcellus stepped onto the porch. The wood creaked like it remembered trauma. He knocked once, then again, harder. From inside, slow movement. A shadow passed behind the curtain. Then the door cracked open, chain still latched. A pale, sunken face peered out. 1 gold tooth, 1 cloudy left eye. "You lost?" the man rasped. Marcellus pulled out his badge. "Nope, looking for Mason Carver. You know him?" Silence. "Then, he don't live here." "Funny, 'cause this house is in his mama's name. And she passed in 2019, so unless you're squatting on her ghost's porch, I'm guessing you're him." The man tried to shut the door. Marcellus wedged a boot in. "I'm not here about your dope days or any priors. I'm here about a girl, Lenora Green. You remember her?" That name made him pause. The cloudy eye blinked hard once. "I ain't seen her since I was a kid," he muttered. "But you did see her?" Marcellus pressed. "At the Mayfield house? 1997? Penny hesitated too long. "I didn't pull that trigger," he muttered. "I told him I didn't want no part of it." "But you were there," Marcellus said softly. You were there when 2 people were killed, and a little girl got told to shut up or disappear." The gold-toothed man's lips tightened. "I ain't saying nothing. That house? That case? It was dirty, man. Real dirty. Y'all don't even know." Marcellus leaned in, voice low and pointed. "You think staying quiet protects you? 'Cause the feds already got a name, and they're looking for bodies to pin it on." Penny's eye twitched. He stepped back from the door. "She didn't deserve none of what happened after," he said finally. "She was just a kid. We all were. But one of us was already working for them." Marcellus frowned. "Who?" Penny looked around like the walls could hear. "They called him Rooster," he whispered. "Real name was Ellis Boone. He wore a jacket with a Saints patch, but he wasn't no kid. He was like 24, maybe. But he hung around, buying beer for us, giving us burner pagers, acting like he ran the crew. Sighed he had protection. Protection from who?" Penny's mouth moved, but no sound came. Then he shut the door. Back at the clinic, Lenora was placed on temporary administrative leave, not fired, not arrested, but escorted out by 2 silent deputies like a walking ghost. She didn't cry, didn't argue, just walked out with her stethoscope in her bag and her reputation unraveling behind her. She didn't go home. She went to the one place that hadn't changed in decades, the old Franklin Memorial Church, now boarded up and forgotten on the edge of town. She climbed through the broken side door, stepping over shattered pews and scattered hymnals. She stood at the altar where Pastor Mayfield once preached. "I remember you," she whispered. Her fingers brushed the pulpit. The place smelled of mildew, cedar, and old grief. She knelt. For the first time since the fingerprint scan, she let herself cry, not for the case, but for the 12-year-old who thought staying quiet was survival. That same night, Agent Ramsey sat alone in his motel room, shuffling papers from the old Biloxi case. Something gnawed at him. Too many blanks, too many redactions, and too many people acting like they wanted the file closed fast even back then. He opened a sealed envelope addressed strictly confidential. Bureau eyes only, and read through the interagency notes. There, buried in a field report, was one name scrawled with a red stamp. Ellis Boone, confidential asset, Gulfport Division, 1997 to 2000. Status, deceased. Cause of death, unspecified. File access, restricted by order of Doge. Ramsey rubbed his temples. Lenora's prince had triggered a ghost, and someone, somewhere, didn't want it exorcised. Outside Cross Hollow, the old county records building stood like a mausoleum of forgotten truths. And that night, under moonlight, someone in a gray windbreaker and gloves slipped through the back door with a copy of the 1997 juvenile intake list. They weren't there to read it. They were there to burn it. The blaze at the county records building wasn't caught until just before dawn. By then, the fire had already gutted the second floor where juvenile records, court transcripts, and sealed affidavits were stored in dusty metal drawers no one touched for years. The fire chief said it was electrical. Detective Marcellus Ray said that was bullshit. Standing in the charred remains, he stared at the melted filing cabinets, black ash coating the floor like judgment. He'd come here hours before the fire, hoping to find the original intake report for Lenora Michelle Green, maybe a trace of Rooster, a.k.a. Ellis Boone, the confidential asset who'd run with the Saints. But it was all gone now. Or so they thought. At the edge of town, Lenora sat in the shotgun seat of Marcellus Ray's SUV, her eyes puffy but clear. "They burned it?" she asked. "Yeah," he said, jaw tight. Someone wanted the past to stay buried. She stared out at the swaying pines. "They almost got their wish." Marcellus reached behind the seat and handed her a sealed manila envelope. "What's this?" she asked. "Backup records," he said. Somebody filed a copy of the Mayfield case under an unrelated foster care audit in Jackson. Real sloppy, but lucky. Lenora opened it slowly. Inside, she found grainy photocopies, an unredacted witness statement, medical records, and a juvenile psychiatric intake form dated November 6, 1997. Her name was on it. Her real statement, one she didn't remember giving. The pages shook in her hand. Later that day, Agent Ramsey stepped onto the porch of a worn house in Gulfport. The woman who answered was in her 80s, wrapped in a housecoat, eyes sharp as razors. "You here for Ellis Boone?" she asked before he could even speak. Ramsey blinked. "Yes, ma'am." She chuckled bitterly. "You people always come late." She led him inside. The living room was filled with cigarette smoke and photos yellowed with age. He was my nephew. He came to stay with me after they got him off the streets. Said the feds made him a confidential helper, paid him under the table, got him involved with some boys he should have never been around. "Did he ever talk about the Mayfield murders?" Ramsey asked. She paused. Her fingers brushed a photo of Ellis in a leather jacket. Once, said it went wrong. Said he tried to scare the pastor, but the lady screamed and things spun out. He cried when he told me. Said a little girl saw the whole thing. That's why he ran. Said if the system ever turned on him, it'd be 'cause of her. Did the system turn on him? Ramsey asked. She laughed, bitter and dry. They killed him, she said. Hit and run. 2003. Case closed in 2 days. 2 weeks later, a community forum was held at Cross Hollow City Hall. It was supposed to be about health care reform. It turned into something else. Lenora stood at the podium. She wore no uniform, no badge, no stethoscope. Just a plain black blouse and the weight of history on her shoulders. "I was 12 when I watched 2 people die," she began, voice steady. "For 28 years, I kept my mouth shut because I thought it was the only way to survive. But silence didn't save me. It erased me. The room was still. I was used. By boys who were used by men. By a system that protected the ones who pulled strings and burned files. But I remember. And now, so will you." Behind her, Agent Ramsey and Detective Ray stood shoulder to shoulder. The case had been reopened. The DOJ had been notified, and a new investigation into former informant misconduct was underway. Months later, Lenora returned to the clinic. Not as a nurse, as its director. A quiet vote by the board pushed through after a public apology. 3 resignations and the threat of a federal probe had cleared the path. She walked the halls like she'd never left. The coffee still tasted the same. The pain in her chest felt lighter. The past hadn't disappeared, but it no longer owned her. That Sunday, she lit 2 candles on the altar of the rebuilt Franklin Memorial Church. One for Walter and Deidre Mayfield. One for the girl who had survived something nobody saw and still became whole. In the back row, Marcellus Ray sat alone, head bowed. He'd watched a lie unravel and a woman rise. And for once, in Mississippi, the truth outlived the fire. Some stories don't end with a verdict. They echo in quiet rooms, in broken trust, in lives forever altered. This wasn't just a case file. It was a warning about what happens when fear replaces facts, when systems protect themselves, and when good people look away because it's easier. What happened here could happen anywhere, because injustice doesn't need a reason, just an opening. So if this story reached you, don't let it vanish. Speak up, share it, start the ripple. Because every time we shine a light, we take power from the shadows. And maybe, just maybe, the next story won't end the same. Like, comment, share, let your voice join the case.